Now, I personally am a big fan of the fantastical side of Batman, but for the Batman Part 2, it doesn't look like that's going to be happening. But you know what? That doesn't mean that there aren't still a bunch of cool bad guys that could be tweaked, maybe just a little bit, to be able to fit inside that new Matt Reeves, the Batman universe. And so, yeah, I just want to give my top five Batman villains that I think could be a good fit for the Batman Part 2. The first one I'm going to mention is going to be the Mad Hatter. Now, you'd get some cool imagery, right? Some cool iconography with all of the Alice in Wonderland stuff. But the threat of the Mad Hatter would be moved maybe away from like the mind control part of it. That's probably not going to be fitting into this Batman, but really more into like we'll call it child endangerment. I like the idea of the threat that the Batman is having to deal with as being something that is also like a thorn in the side of the Penguin and the organized crime in Gotham City, and that it's almost in a way like Batman is having to take care of something that is, really a hindrance to everybody. Because definitely Batman's gonna be dealing with the Penguin. I mean, he's getting his own HBO Max show, so obviously he's gonna be involved. But I think whatever comes in and is being like, the villain, it's going to have to like kind of tie into those. And I think that this is definitely something that could do that, and could definitely build in, just continuing that story and that arc of Batman becoming, the hope of Gotham City. So there's just a lot of potential, I think, with this one. The next one is probably the least likely to happen. It's Killer Croc. Here, let me just tell you on this. I'd love the idea of a Batman movie where they don't tell us that like Killer Croc is going to be in the movie, but there's just like, oh, there's some serial killer, and Batman is trying to solve, the killings that are going on with this serial killer, and we just don't know who it is. And it's again, same thing like we were talking about with Mad Hatter. It could be hitting organized crime and hitting like just the people of Gotham at the same time. It's like, oh man, it's like people are showing up and they're partially eaten, and like, oh, it's all messed up, and Batman ends up in the sewer and we still don't know who it is. Maybe you could have pieced it together through some different clues and everything that are being dropped, but then just like out of the water behind him, like Killer Croc comes up. Now I would love for it to be like an actual crocodile Killer Croc. Like that would be awesome. Maybe closer to the Batman the Animated Series, right? Just a big dude who's got a skin condition. I think it could be pretty cool to see him go up against the Batman. I think Poison Ivy could also fit into this universe in a way that wouldn't be too much of a stretch for her. You could definitely keep her character motivations the same, right? Her caring for the planet. It's definitely a idea that is talked about a lot, and people would definitely identify with that. Like, oh yeah, maybe she's got, maybe she's got something to say about all this stuff, especially with Gotham being where it is, like underwater. It's like, the earth is already retaking the city. Well, why should we rebuild it? And so when it comes to like the plant parts of it, like obviously she wouldn't be making like mind controlled giant, like moving tentacled plant monsters that can eat people. Not to say I wouldn't enjoy that if it did happen. I'd be all for that. But she can do poison stuff. She can do, the plants that like spray out like paralytic like spray in people's faces and stuff like that. And I think she could be a threat where I really do like this idea of him still being a detective, right? Lots of detective stuff, science stuff here. He's got to learn different things. Hopefully his science skills are going to be better than his Spanish was. No habla español. Scarecrow is obviously one that we could throw in here. I like the idea of him, stepping in and trying to take that fear that the Batman was using in the first movie. I don't know why I keep calling him the Batman, but anyway, that Batman was using in the first movie, and just kind of using it to his own will, seeing that it was a powerful weapon and using it to do the things that he wants to do. I would stray away from the idea of him being involved in Arkham, right? Because we've done that already. That's Batman Begins, and it's not like my favorite version of Scarecrow either, man. I like disgraced college professor, just about stealing stuff, wanting to get the credit he deserves, for his studies and his discoveries and everything. And maybe we team Scarecrow up with Poison Ivy. I think that's a natural like team up, right? She's developing this fear toxin for him. It could be fun. Plus maybe we could get like a super cool Scarecrow costume, because as good as Cillian Murphy is in the the Dark Knight movies, his Scarecrow is a burlap sack on a guy in a business suit. The idea that actually gets me most excited when I think about the Batman Part 2 is the idea of the ventriloquist and Scarface being in the movie. Like, I think it really kind of threads that needle of, fantastical, which is something I enjoy in Batman. I like to see it kind of crazy, all that stuff, but then also completely realistic. Like, it's something that could happen, right? It's just a guy who is split, and he has got these two personalities, and one of them is shown through a puppet that looks like a mobster. I like the idea of a threat that is legitimate but doesn't seem so at the beginning. Plus, no matter what happens at the end of the movie, you get the super satisfying death of the bad guy, and you don't even have to feel bad for it because he's not actually dead. The animated series killed him off like every time he was on the show, and it was always awesome. So anyway, those are just a couple of my quick thoughts on like different villains that might be fun to see in the Batman Part 2. Obviously, anything that's going to happen, I'm excited to see it. It's still ways off though, so we'll just have plenty of time to think and speculate. What about for you? Who do you think would be a cool villain to see in the new Batman movie? Let me know in the comments below. I'd love to hear. And thanks so much for stopping by, and I look forward to seeing you at the next video. All right, take care.